Good morning, everybody. So it's Thursday. We are going to do arms and shoulders today. We're going to go back-to-back bicep, back-to-back tricep to try and fatigue those muscles a little bit and get a little bit of burn. Different movements than we've done so far, but if these aren't for you, throw in the ones from last week or the week before. And just mix and match. You do want to try and mix it up every so often, right? Our bodies adapt. Different things are harder for different people. So try to find a challenge and go from there. All right, so the first exercise we're going to do is bicep exercise. I'm going to use the band, but you could do this with dumbbells. You just have to use a slightly lighter set of dumbbells because holding the shoulder blades in position is really important. And the weight will be at the outside with the dumbbell, right? You're going to be really weighted in this position, which can be challenging. Totally doable, but just make sure your shoulders feel okay with it. So I'm going to start with whatever band you play around with and feel like it's going to give you the most bang for your buck, right? Shoulders are going to set back and down. You're going to curl in, come all the way back out. So usually I might cue you away from this, but if you rotate your knuckles in a little bit, you'll feel the bicep muscle kick in. Just straighten the wrists at the end, and if the wrist thing is not yours where you rotate the knuckles in, right, see it does put a little flexion on that wrist, then leave that part out and just work on the wrist stability and keeping the wrists straight. You want to try and keep the elbows high and forward and shoulders back and down. You may notice that changes through the set. The bonus here is if you really flex on the way out, you're going to get a little bit of tricep work as well. But really think about what's pulling the weight in is that bicep contracting as you curl the weight in. All right, so that's the first bicep move. Second bicep move, again, you can do this with dumbbells. I've connected a band to that piece of curtain rod that is coming very useful these past few days. You just want to make sure you have relatively even band on both sides. Again, you could do this with a band with two handles, right? Just secure the handles. But that's like a regular curl, right? You want to make sure your glutes are set underneath you. So maybe you want to squeeze the glutes a little bit so you're not hinging, right? We don't want any of that hinging through the waist. So just straight up, controlled back to the start. Shoulders set back and down, elbows stay close to the side. Try and keep the wrists straight on this one. And work on that wrist stability as well, right? So that may be your limiting factor. So depending on how tight the band is and sort of where the tension on the band starts, shoot for as many reps as you start to feel that burn in the bicep. And at the end, what we're going to do is find a little bit of tension and just hold. So I say hold for 20 seconds. You can count it out. You can set the timer. But as you build that hold, you're going to start to feel that little quiver in the biceps. If you feel like the shoulders are rounding back or you lost your posture, right, reset. Just find that moment where you feel like, okay, enough. And then down, you'll feel a little bit of residual awareness in that bicep at the end. So I haven't been reiterating this because I think everybody knows it now, but right, 3 sets, 4 sets, 10, 12, 15 reps, depending on the tightness of the band and kind of the function you want to get out of it. Next 2 moves are tricep moves. We've done a variation on this one before, but we're going to do a different overhead tricep extension. You could add the bar to your band against the wall. You can do this with dumbbells right behind, right? But really important to keep the focus in the tricep is that the rest of the body stays super steady. So I'm actually not going to hold the handles. I'm just going to hold the band right in front of the handle. So again, you could do this with the circular band. You could do this holding a dumbbell, right? But what you're going to think about is not having everything else in alignment, right? So I'm pretty close to the door, so I'm almost pulling straight up on the weight. You want your hips underneath you, ribs tucked down, shoulders down. Extend. If you want, you can add a little squeeze out. That takes a little bit more shoulder stability. And then all the way back down. You want to feel the stretch from the elbow down to the kind of just below the shoulder in the back when you get down to the bottom right. So if you stop yourself short, you're not getting the full range of motion, and the tricep won't have to work quite as hard. So all the way down, feel that stretch, up and out. So obviously, different overhead move, but an overhead move nonetheless. And if this doesn't feel right on your shoulders, leave it out, stick with your skull crusher kind of movements. Right, play with the grip in the skull crusher, mix it up. So eventually, again, you'll start to build that little bit of tension up in the tricep. So don't completely poop your triceps out on that one, because the next tricep move is kind of a tough one. So we're going to set up in a plank position. I'm actually going to stay on my knees. For those of you that have more tricep strength, I can only get like 1 from my toes or 2 from my toes, which is not great for this purposes. So I'm going to set up in a low plank, but in a low plank where my elbows are a little bit forward from my shoulders. My hands are going to stay flat on the floor. I'm going to ground my shoulders down, and then I'm going to lock in my torso. So my torso is going to stay in one straight, rigid line, pause, brace. I'm going to push down through the inside part of my hands where the thumb and forefinger sort of connect, and push straight up. Lock out at the top, right? Rotate those elbow pits forward, set the shoulders down, come back down. So up, squeeze at the top, set the shoulders, come back down. So again, you can do this from all the way up in a sort of regular plank position. Elbows a little bit forward. Again, just be mindful of what your shoulder is telling you. If you really keep them locked back and down, after a few reps, you'll start to really feel that tricep kick in on that push to the top, right? But just make sure the shoulder stays in. Okay, 2 shoulder moves. One sort of a warm-up move, and one that we're going to be gentle with, right? So just sort of noticing on this one where you may come into sticky portions of your shoulder or portions. You don't want this to get painful, but it can feel pretty stretchy. You can do this with a band with handles. You can do this with a broomstick handle. The wider your hands are in this position, so I recommend everybody start super wide, the less range of motion or the less mobility it sort of requires. So you're going to start with the band right in front, shoulder blades back and down. Little tension on the band, but so there's no slack, right? You don't have to be pulling hard and creating any exertion to just take the slack out of the band. Make sure the glutes are underneath you and the rib cage stays neutral. So you don't want to be arching your back more or less as you rotate the band up, over, and behind. So everybody's range of motion is different, right? Some of you may just get to here and that's enough of a stretch. Some of you may get all the way to the back, right? Everybody's totally different on this one, but don't arch your back as you rotate, right? May take a few rounds to sort of get the shoulders warmed up. Try not to hunch them way up, right? Try and keep this distance the same. You want a little bit more tension, right? If you shorten the length on the band, you may not get as far back, but that's okay. So sort of play around with which one gives you a little bit of sensation in the stretch. Don't get anywhere where it's painful. Start super easy, right? And try not to move this. This is all about just finding and warming up. That's the stuff in that shoulder capsule. All right, so last but not least, external rotation. I like to do this one against a wall because I can feel what my shoulder blade is doing. I'm going to use a band, but you can just as easily use a dumbbell. The difference is right where that vector of force or tension or resistance is coming from. In this case, it's coming from sort of down and over, which I like, but you can do it this way, just you'll have gravity pulling down. you won't so much have the over part, right? Which helps me find a connection. But just think about where you're pulling from and what's connecting. So I'm going to go, I am going to go back hand on the band, not on the handle. And then you want to think about keeping your wrist straight, lock that shoulder back and down, and rotate, right? So you want to try and keep the other shoulder grounded, hips grounded, right? Back neutral, so that little bit of arch in that mid sort of lower back, right? That sort of natural arch. And then you're just going to rotate out to the side, right? So I'm envisioning trying to get the back of my hand, back of my wrist to the elbow, but the rotation is coming from that shoulder, from just behind the shoulder. Right, so don't worry about how far you get to the wall. If you've had any sort of rotator cuff stuff, right, your range of motion may not be great, but we all get to start somewhere. Right, so try to keep the wrist straight, palm out to the side at 90 degrees, and then you're just going to switch sides. Try and make the pressure the same on both sides. The same thing, second side. Again, wrist straight, and just reaching the back of the hand, the back of the wrist towards the wall, right? Picturing what that shoulder blade's doing behind you, how it's rotating, and that sort of lower inside edge of that shoulder blade is kind of pulling down and in towards the spinal column. So you're going to should feel a slight burning kind of around that part of the shoulder blade. You may feel a little bit across the front of the shoulders. That's what has to open up that shoulder blade to rotate around. All right, 6 exercises, 6 movements. Enjoy. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks.